Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Joe Caccera, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, Joe Caccera.
Welcome in, Joe Caccera with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you for those that are continuing to follow the live feed on Facebook. We appreciate that very much, and we want to continue to grow the show and grow the audience in any way we can, primarily for the objective to reach out and educate and inform as many people as we can. That's our focus for the last 8 years, is education and information. So we work really hard. Hopefully you get the results of that, of having great guests, good partnerships, a lot of good shows and content delivered back to you, the consumer, so that you make wise decisions in and around your real estate. We do some different shows as well. We look outside the box a little bit. We do a show with Jack Russo typically on Thursdays or a couple times a month on starting something new in Silicon Valley about startups. We're doing Growing Your Business this year. It's been a pretty popular show. We get a lot of good feedback from that. So that's a lot of fun, but typically on Wednesdays, it's the two Italian guys talking real estate. So Mike's back here.
Hey-o.
Back.
Hey.
And before I forget, we got to remember, because it's been, I think it's a couple weeks because of our schedules, but we got to remember each show, right? We still have that ongoing offer out there for 2 people a week, or 2 or 3, I forget. I didn't get any calls or text.
Because I think didn't it get cut off or something like that?
Oh, you know what? I think you're right.
Yeah, so we might as well say it now before we get cut off.
That's a good point. So, yeah, the offer was, and it must have been 2 or 3 weeks ago because for our schedules we haven't been back on. So I'm going to throw it out there again. So if you're obviously watching the show now on Facebook, that's great. If you're listening, downloading the podcast later, the offer ongoing for the show when Mike and I are doing it is that up to 3 people that either call in, text, call us during the week, email us during the week, with really a legitimate question, not just like, where do I take my pet to get it neutered? Not like that.
That is a random question.
I don't know where that came from. No, but it's a real estate-related question. Like you might call Mike and say, you know what, I've really been thinking about selling my home. I don't know. I'm concerned about A, B, or C. Or, Joe, I'm thinking about refinancing, pulling some money out to remodel, to add on. Should I do that? Should I get an equity line? Mike, I'm thinking about buying a home, but is it the right time? There's all these great questions around there, right? Yeah. There are all these great questions. So
2 Italian guys talking pet neutering.
Yeah, exactly. So up to 3 people a week who either call, email, or reach out to Mike or I about a legitimate, I'll use the word legitimate, real estate question or concern or comment. We will give you a large pizza from Giorgio's,
there you
right?
go.
Large pizza from Giorgio's.
Free large pizza.
And if you haven't had Giorgio's pizza, you want to do that.
Best pizza around.
I would call and be prepared to have a great question. That's not probably good that I say that. I'm staging this damn thing. It's not good. Anyway,
it's okay.
You get the point. We want the interaction. We want to be able to help.
We love to hear from you.
Yeah, we'd absolutely love to hear from you. Any real estate related questions, give us a call. Most of you know how to reach me, either the website RERL-1637, Joe at RERL-1637, and of course all the contact information is on there, 408-838-9060. Mike, you want to give them your contact
information? My website, MikeDsells.com or 408-630-0101. I wonder if I still have a Radio Live. I think I have a Radio Live email. Mike at RE Radio Live, right?
I think you do.
All right.
Try it. If it gets kicked back, then let me know.
Mike at Mike D Sells.
That's a good point. We're going to look into that.
Did you kick me off the email thing?
You expired.
Yeah.
All right. So today we're going to just do a little bit of market update, but then we're going to really talk a little bit about a couple different things. One, there's a lot of changes going on in the marketplace. You've heard Mike and I talk about. When I say changes that relates to different real estate and to a certain extent financing models. We want to make sure that when you get a call or when you get ready to finance a home, list a home, buy a home, that you're going to probably get bombarded. You're hearing people. I hear people come to me, Mike, and you probably hear the same thing. Joe, what's going on with I'm hearing Redfin a lot, or what's going on with this? I hear this on the radio, or I see this on the internet. So we're going to talk a little bit about all these different models, so to speak, or companies that are doing real estate and then some lending too, and really just educate you on the differences. And it's not a right or wrong, but just so you clearly understand what you could potentially be getting or not getting when you engage with these types of services. Because in some cases, we all know, I hate to say this, Mike, but it's true. Let's face it, if you're not careful, a lot of money spent on advertising. And I go through this on the lending side. I tell people you can't really blame someone for lying or misleading, but most of the lending...
Except on Real Estate Radio Live. No.
Most of the lending, I'll call it rate, cost advertising on a lot of these major sites, and what they'd have to do, unfortunately, is they put unrealistic stuff on there.
Yeah.
They have small disclaimers at the end, so it looks and sounds very appealing, but when you lift up the hood, under covers, however you want to talk about it, what happens is you find out there's a lot more to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, with all advertising, you really got to kind of peel the onion, so to say, and figure out what it really means and what the deal really is.
Right. So we're going to talk kind of a little bit about that just to educate you and a few other things as well. So quick update on the market. I know this is maybe a normal market, Mike. Maybe give us a quick snapshot on inventory in the Santa Clara County and how are things going.
Yeah, we're almost at about 2,200 units, for sale units in the market in Santa Clara County, which to be what's considered a normal market, about 2,000 to 3,000 we would need. So, days on market, average days on market's probably at about a month right now, a little bit under a month, which is pretty normal. You hear stories of houses flying off the shelves 2 to 3 days. There still are those things happening, multiple offers, but it's a lot more sporadic than it was a year ago, and we've talked about it before. Anyways, getting back to the market, about 2,200 active units. This time last year we probably were at like 500 or 600, so it's been a big change. It's good though. It's healthy, and looking at it from a more of a listing agent perspective, you just have to have more skills now. In our line of work, I was just talking about this with someone the other day in my office, is that people that got into this business, or even sellers that have been following the market the last 3 or 4 years, been really spoiled, really, really, really spoiled. Okay, for things selling within a week, 5 days.
Right.
But now you have to really it's all about expectation setting, and it's all about setting your own, like if you're a seller, setting your own expectations and really kind of changing the mindset, because there's no guarantees right now with anything. Now, it might take some time, but that's okay. That's more of a normal life in real estate. So
and we've talked about this before along the lines of what Mike's talking about. What we should try to do as professionals, you'll probably hear me say this a lot, is try to take the emotion out of the transaction. Yeah. Because there's going to be plenty of emotion flowing, believe me, and with the clients and the consumers, and it's normal. We've all been there, or most of us have been there to buy. It's emotional. And so that's great. That's going to happen, but typically one of the things you should find if you work with a professional is that they take the emotions out and they acknowledge them, they validate them, right? But at the same time, then you start to educate. Okay, I know the way you're feeling, but let's sit down and look at the numbers. I understand what your neighbor might have told you, but let's sit down and look at the data. Yeah. I understand what someone at work said, I got a free loan, but let's sit down and talk about really what that meant, right? Right. So take all that out, and then our job is to try to really make sure that we educate you, because that's typically, if someone's hiring a professional, that's what they should get, is professional services and obviously those kind of resources. Yeah. So market's just a normal market, average market, as you mentioned, still. So your take is you still put a home on the market that's priced properly in a good area. Most likely it's going to sell pretty quickly. Yeah, it'll sell pretty quickly within 10 to 14 days, I guess, on average. If it's priced right or even a little bit aggressive, it'll sell quickly, and it looks good, and it shows well. If it's a dump and it's overpriced, it's going to sit there for a while. But right now, even with some houses that are priced relatively well and show well, buyers still have choice. So I've even noticed this on a couple of my listings, is that they are taking their time, and we've talked about this at my sales meeting too. A lot of other agents are experiencing the same thing.
buyers are taking their time on making a decision on a house too.
Right.
So, for example, I have this property in Los Gatos. It's priced well. It shows well. It's only been on the market a week, so I'm not like freaking out or anything. I have about 3 parties circling right now, and I say circling the wagons because I'm thinking one of them is going to step up to the plate. But if this was a year ago, I would have had 2 or 3 offers within a week. Yeah. But now these guys are telling me, like, hey, you know, they really like the house, but there's some other stuff they're looking at. They're looking at this area, but they really like your house. So it's kind of interesting, the mindset shift, you know?
Yeah, it is. It's just, you know, I think what happens too is when, you know, especially in an area like this, and you know, I say this on a fairly, we have more educated, informed consumers throughout the United States and the world in general. Let's just put it that way. But here, when you are buying an average home for $1.5 million and people are spending a lot of money, I'm not saying it's, you know, it is a different world. And what I mean by that is, you know, you have these buyers now that we're used to this crazy seller's market, and some at one point there's a little bit of an exhaustion. We're now stepping back, and then we talked about this too. I think what part of the psychology, Mike, is that, you know, if you were in that tornado or storm, whatever you want to call it, and now you're stepping back going, well, God, you know, a year ago that house on the market would have frickin' flew off, 15 people would have standing in line making offers. Is there something wrong because it's there 2 weeks later?
Yeah, right.
It's funny, right? So it causes pause.
It does.
So what I'll say before we jump into our topic we're going to focus on today is, as we said last time, and I really mean this. I've been following this market and this real estate business for years. Buyers, get out there, and if you are a serious buyer, try to make it happen now. And I'm not saying things are going to change in the next 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, or even year. But what I'm saying is if you're a serious buyer and you remember what it was like a couple of years ago, which was dreadful, and you were going to be in this property for 5, 7+ years, buy now. I'm not saying go buy something just to buy something, but if you're in the market, now's a great time. You have the inventory. You just heard Mike say, you know, you have more options. We're talking about you could actually get a home now with contingencies.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of these things favor the buyer.
Yeah.
So get out there if you're buyers. I think it's a great time to buy.
And don't be afraid to make an offer that's lower than the price. There's that reservation right now, too. I've noticed a lot of buyers that don't even want to make an offer because they don't want to insult the seller or the price is lower than the list price, and it's odd. It's just, come on, man.
All right, so we're going to cover today, you know, not quickly, but as efficiently as we can, I'll say it that way, the different real estate and lending models out there that you're hearing about. The markets are being flooded with them. And so what we're going to do is talk a little bit about the different models and what they mean and how to understand them. There's no right or wrong. You won't hear us, you know, bad-mouthing a certain model, real estate lending model, as much as educating, because some of this is misleading. And then the other thing to really understand, and we're going to hopefully walk you through it, is you just need to know what you're getting for the model you choose. That would be the best way I could describe it to you. So, for instance, Mike, the traditional model, someone hires someone like yourself that takes it very serious. You treat it like a business. You study the market. This is a full-time business for you. This is not a hobby. This is not something you're doing on the side. This is something you spend a lot of time and energy and resources on. And so that principle delivers back to your consumers. They see that value. They see the difference. And this is what we would call a traditional real estate model, where Mike works for Intero Real Estate, and he's been doing this for some time now. Again, treats it like a business. So when you sit down with him, whether he's representing the buy or the sell side, he's going to have data for you. He's going to have statistics. He's going to have his own philosophy, and he's going to guide you through this process to take you through a path that you're going to have a better chance to succeed, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So that's a traditional model.
Joe.
Yeah, you're
Appreciate
absolutely.
that.
You're welcome. We've been working together for years.
I'd say likewise to you in the loan business. So there you go. Ditto.
Yeah. So that's kind of the traditional model that people have become accustomed or used to over the years. Now, over the last several years, and this has always been going on, don't get me wrong. You know, back years ago, there was Help You Sell and a couple of these other things. There's a whole spectrum of different models. So let's just take and I don't know if we want to say the names, but let's just take the models where someone says or advertises on the radio that we'll sell your house for 1%, or we'll sell your house for a flat fee of $5,300, or whatever. There may be a flat fee depending on what area you're in. So with this particular model, and there's some in between, but let's kind of start there. What do people need to know about that, Mike? I mean, first of all, is it true? Should you be careful about whether that's really the true price? And then that would be the first thing, and then I have my own opinion, but I want to hear from you too.
Yeah.
And then secondly, let's say it is 1%. So then what would a consumer expect? And let's take the listing part of it right now.
Yeah, the listing side, what to expect. Typically, the advertised commissions or fee structures are usually similar to what is actually happening. But I think it's important to understand the level of service that comes along with that.
Right.
And let me just make an analogy. It's kind of like eating whether you want to go eat a meal at McDonald's or if you want to go to the French Laundry. Okay? So you have full service versus not full service versus almost like a menu of options or just a discounted level of service.
Okay.
And it's not I'm not saying no right or wrong. It's up to the consumer as to what they want to do. Obviously, I work in the full service arena, so I'm probably a little bit more biased towards that. But you just have to understand what you're going to get with it's what you pay for, really, is what it's all about. I mean, and so some of these models that are discount services you're going to maybe potentially be dealing with different brokers or different agents throughout the process. It's not just going to be one person guiding you through. They have different specialists in different areas. One of the benefits maybe with working with some of these companies is their internet exposure is really good, but from the level of service standpoint, with such a complicated transaction, you're probably not going to get the normal full service as you would.
I think piggybacking on what Mike said, just understand, and this is the great thing about life in general. Think about it, whether we're talking about electronics, cars, meals, whatever. There are going to be people, and it has nothing to do with educational level, demographics, or anything. There are going to be people, Mike, that are going to say, you know what? I don't care. I want the cheapest thing. Right?
Yeah.
They're just going to, and that's okay. That's a model.
Yeah.
And if that model fits a particular person, business, company, strategy, that's fine. And so it's not a right or wrong. And so I learned this a long time ago, whether it's buying or selling homes or even rates. You know, some people, rates and fees, I'll give you an example. Some people, I've worked with them for a month or more, and we get down to pretty close to closing, whether it's a refinance or a purchase. And, you know, all of a sudden they'll say, well, this guy down the street could save me $500, or they promised to pay for my appraisal. And they don't have any inkling or care or concern about that last month that you spent with them, taking them through and getting them ready to close on time. Right? And so I used to take it personal. Yeah. And now I realize, you know, that's just, unfortunately, that's going to happen.
It is going to happen.
And you hope it doesn't happen as much, but so those are the bottom lines. However, this is kind of what we're talking about. If you know going in, and in fairness to everyone, what I would say is when you're interviewing with an agent, I want to hear from Mike too, or loan officer, whatever it may be. The best thing to do is just be very honest and transparent about that initial consultation, right? If someone says to you, Mike, you know, God, look at your marketing, it's fabulous. You gave me this great analysis. I really love everything you did. But you know what? I don't want to pay more than 1% to list my home, right? I mean, if they're up front and they tell you about that.
Yeah, that's better to know then than later. And you shake hands and say, best of luck,
right.
You know? The one other thing I wanted to mention, too, is there are some companies out there now that will buy your house.
Oh, right. Pay cash for it.
Pay cash for it at a discount or a higher fee structure.
Be careful of that.
And then they're going to flip it. Basically, they're going to gingerbread it up and resell it for, they think, a profit, which is going to be, you know, if they don't know the market, it's going to be pretty hard. But I guess that works for, you know, just be careful about the fee structure. Make sure you really understand how much it's going to cost you. Now, that might work for some people that don't want the hassle of going on the market and doing open. Because honestly, it is work. It is work to go on the market. Now, if you have a good agent, it's going to be more seamless and it's going to be more set up, but it's definitely not like living your everyday life.
Right.
You know, especially if you have kids. I got some clients right now that have kids. You have to leave the house for 3 hours on the weekend to do an open house or for showings and gathering up the kids and all the other stuff.
I'm in the attic for a couple hours.
Yeah, that's good. So those types of things, it's not easy to go on the market, but you're getting the proper exposure that you deserve. So if that's not important to you, then maybe the way these companies are buying houses outright for a higher fee structure might work, because then you get the cash, you're in, you're out, and you can move on.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to think about.
These are all good examples, and just do the consultations, have the meetings, have these discussions depending on who you're going to work with. And Mike mentioned there's menu-based services too. Let's kind of go through those. So there are some companies that'll say, I'll tell you what, we'll sell your house, we'll represent you, and it'll cost you X. But if you start checking off these menu items, then it just starts getting cheaper or more expensive.
Yeah.
So you might start at this base level, and they say, guess what, we could list your house for 1%. And then when you start getting into details, they say, okay, so here's the list of services if you want to pay more than 1%. What do you mean I don't get it? No, it's here, right? So then when you start checking the box, just remember when you check those boxes, there's value associated to each box.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have to be careful those kinds of things. For instance, I've seen some of them, they'll say, do you want to do your own open houses? Do you want to do your own marketing flyers? Which is funny to me, because I'm thinking to myself, and again, no offense to someone that has a lot of time on their hand, but if you are a full-time, maybe if you're retired or if you like this stuff or if you have nothing else to do, I could see. But if you work full-time or you have a business or a family or you just in general, you have other more important things to do to experience and enjoy life rather than, seriously, do all that you pay someone else to do, right?
Absolutely.
I'm laughing, but not at the people that want to do it. God bless you. If you have all that time on your hands and you want to get involved with all that, then, again, that's a tiny percentage, but that could work for some people.
It's kind of, it is the business we work in, too. People feel like they know real estate or know loans, and it's not like you hire a plumber. If you don't know anything about plumbing, you're probably not going to spend an 8-hour workday trying to figure out how to fix a plumbing, a leak, right? You're going to hire a plumber and get it done. So it's similar in the sense of hiring a professional for real estate or lending or whatever, is that, so people think differently about this line of work sometimes. Now, and we're kind of speaking maybe to more of a minority, because I believe in general a large majority of the public do see a lot of the value in a full-service brokerage, and that's good.
I agree, and I think that there is a difference. We'll talk a little bit on the lending side. There's a difference in the models when you're talking about a refinance and a purchase.
Yeah.
A refinance, I would say that, people have more of a tendency. There's typically no time-sensitive nature in it, so that, people have a tendency maybe to shop more, try to figure out. And, again, that's all consumers. That's what we all do. On a purchase, it's entirely different when you're looking at a real estate transaction. Then you've heard us talk about this before. Be really careful who you work with on the lending side on a purchase, or if any kind of transaction, if anything's tied to a purchase, a sale, a buy, if anything's in that circle, be real careful of that, because it's very time sensitive. And it's not just the property or your purchase. Mike will tell you also, there's typically a chain of events that are tied to that, right? So when the person's selling their home, they're typically going to buy a home, and then the person they're selling it from, they're doing something with that money, or it's a 1031 exchange, and there's a time. So what we're saying here is, be real careful of who you work with on the lending side if it's a purchase transaction, and that you trust them, you have a relationship. And obviously, you're getting a fair deal. You always want to do that. And most people are going to be fair within the market. But it's really important to make sure that person's able to close on time, and then work with a group of people that do this on a regular basis. Yeah,
I think it's super important, especially if it's within a real estate transaction, because timelines are super important. Just like you said, people got other things to do with the money, and if you're not performing on that, I mean, it's going to be, you talk about emotion.
Right, yeah, it is. Mike mentioned a minute ago, so I'm going to bring back up, there's a new trend in the real estate too, and we don't hear a lot about it here because of the price points, but there's a lot going on throughout the United States in the lower level price points, and that's what I'll call the iBuyer program, where Mike talked about, there's a model out there, there's Open Door and a couple other programs, businesses that their model is to buy the house outright. And so I'll go through this again. Most of you may have heard me go through this. But so the upside, the positive side of that, what they'll tell you in their marketing is that, hey, here's the great news. We're going to come to a term on your home, although typically they're going to try to get a deal on it, believe me.
Yeah.
But we're going to come to what they call a fair market value, which is a funny wording. And if they do, what they'll do is say, hey, listen, No open houses. Don't have to do any landscaping. You don't have to people going in and out of your house. You don't have to worry about getting your house ready. None of this. You don't have to worry about title and escrow and getting a loan. All that stress is removed because we're going to write you a check for a negotiated price on your house. And again, for some people, this might work. It really might.
Yeah.
So those are the upsides, the positives. The things you have to potentially look for in the iBuyer model are two things, in my opinion. One, there are fees behind the scene that they don't talk about even on the website. They're really hard to find, Mm-hmm. But I could tell you this, only because I research this stuff every day, Mike. The cost of this iBuyer program is somewhere between 8 to 10%.
Yeah.
Average.
Even
okay?
more.
And this is what a lot of people don't understand because it sounds very appealing, and they lead with, this is what we're going to do, expedient, write you a check, all that, which is great. So keep an eye on that. And the reason why that's important is that, again, if you're selling a home for $200,000, maybe you might be thinking, Joe, 8 to 10% versus 4 or 5%. It's not that. That's true. It may not in the big scheme of things, but it's all relative, right? In my opinion,
how much more percentage are you sacrificing by just doing it to one party as opposed to exposing it? Yeah.
And I think people have to be careful, and I try to do this, that let's face it, a $200,000 home is just as important and just as expensive and just as price sensitive to a person, in Ohio as it is a $2 million home versus a $200,000. My point is, you can't assume, well, the person buying or selling a $200,000 home, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that much money. Well, it is to them.
It is, yeah. Well, here's the back end of that piece is how these. I don't know how if it's ever going to be able to. Well, you never say never, but come into this area because they have these algorithms and these programs behind the scenes that are analyzing houses to target. Right. Okay. And this is why in areas like Arizona and Nevada that these programs are somewhat taking off. I don't know if taking off is the right term.
Getting more traction.
Getting more traction. Yeah. And so, therefore, it's easier for a program to analyze what the projections are on that type of property, what they could buy it for, fix it, and then sell it for. Right. Are they going to be able to do that in Silicon Valley? No. Have you driven the hills of Saratoga or Los Gatos or other neighborhoods? There's really no algorithm that can project that type of stuff I've seen.
Yeah,
so far.
My take,
why.
My take is both sides of the coast, that'll be almost impossible to have that particular model. I think what they'll do is when they come into markets like this, they're going to use agents, and it'll be a different model.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah.
That's what will happen on the markets like this. It's different. So be careful of the fees. Again, they'll talk about how simple it is, but typically, and this is just not my opinion, this is statistics and data if you do the research, the average cost for the iBuyer program is about 8 to 10%. So keep that in mind. The other thing is you have to really, really be careful of the agreement in which so if this home's being bought and pay cash, one of the things that I get concerned about is, are they paying fair market value, and who's determining that? Mike had mentioned about the algorithms, and a lot of the intelligence that they have behind the scenes is actually getting a lot better. So let's face it, most of us talk about Zillow and Redfin and some of this stuff where we get values. But the other thing to be really careful of that I get concerned about this iBuyer program, Mike, is in any kind of market that changes a little bit, or even, let's face it, if it's a particular market that now is going into a recession or all of a sudden things change, values change, and it could have an effect on the other side of your transaction. So what I'm saying is be really careful about the price point that they're paying for your home. Because let's face it, when someone's buying your home outright, they have to make money somewhere. We all have to make money somewhere, right? So I know they're making it on the percentage side, but be careful because here's my point, kind of to finish up this piece. When you're in an iBuyer program and that's your business, Mike, your business is to buy that home and then sell it relatively quickly, at least within 90 days or so. Yeah. And if all of a sudden you're stuck with, $160 million worth of inventory that you can't sell, or the market's all of a sudden doing this. Yeah. It could be an interesting thing. So just be careful.
Yeah, and just on a side note to that, is just the way I look at it is hard enough to flip property when you're a local flipper investor, it's hard enough to make money when you're in the market and you know the market. It's hard enough to find deals. I have a couple guys that I can send a flip to or whatnot. But for a company to do that is not local, I don't know. I just don't see how that's going to be a really good thing for them. I don't know. I mean, and I hope I could be proven wrong, but it's very hard to do that if you're not local. I think being local is very, very important.
So here's my take on this, and this is not a right or wrong, and it could be good or bad for the consumer depending on how you look at it. Let's take Zillow, for example. They're now jumping into the iBuyer market as a lot of some of these large brokerage agencies are doing. And Zillow has come out and made a comment publicly that said their margins are going to be terrible on the iBuyer flipping market. Where they're going to try to make it up is they started a mortgage company and they're trying to do joint ventures.
Auxiliary services.
Right.
Yeah.
So that should tell you something right there.
Yeah.
And the only reason we bring this up is not to right or wrong or bad or badmouth any company, because everybody deserves a chance at whatever their model or whatever they want to do. As much as just understand before you engage and get into contract with someone, just our plea to you today would be understand everything about it. Look at all your options. That's what I always tell people. If something sounds really cool or too good to be true, you know that good old saying, it typically probably is, so be careful of that. Mm-hmm. And then get feedback from people you trust. Most everyone, before you make a big financial decision, most everyone has people, whether family members, close friends, business associates, maybe financial planners, it might be professional services people, that you trusted you could run stuff by. And I would say, lastly, before we close out, be sure to always check in with people like that and bounce ideas off them and thoughts before you make a big decision like that.
Why not, you know? Most people's biggest decision of their life, financially. So why not ask the questions and talk to the right people that can help you with those decisions?
Yeah. So in general, there's a ton of models. I say a ton. I'm not going to go into detail because there's all these little variants of the way companies interact. All I will say is this, and the message Mike and I are trying to get across today. All these different models, it could be very confusing. It's coming at you full steam. Just make sure you educate yourself and understand them before you make those decisions. And I'll throw this out, and I know Mike does the same thing. You don't have to work with us. Let's just say you're nervous about a potential decision, or you've already made a decision, you're in contract, or you're getting a loan. I say this all the time. Call me anyway. I'd rather help you make the right decision or make you be at a peace of mind. And I don't want the business right now. I'd rather have you trust me, so maybe somewhere down the road they'll look to using us, right?
I agree.
That's part of the idea of
helping
people. That's right. So we'll throw that out there. And before we close out again, remember that if you are a person that likes pizza, so you know that pizza is the number one fast food, right? That probably doesn't surprise any of us.
I did not know that.
You didn't know that? Number one fast
I should know.
Year over year, it's the number one fast food.
Interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, if I didn't have some kind of resistance and lack of control, I'd be eating pizza every night.
I mean, I guess I know. Well, I guess when I think of fast food, I think of like McDonald's, Burger King, and that type of thing. I mean, pizza still takes time to cook, but I guess it is
Domino's
falls under. That's true.
That's the style. I mean, I know. Yeah.
Son of a guns.
Talk about cheap fast.
Yeah. Exactly.
But there's a market for it.
There is.
Anyway, again, 3 callers, up to 3 callers or contacts a week. The offer is this. Give us a call, email, text, check with Mike and I if you have questions about buying, selling, financing, anything that you're concerned about or something's coming up, you really want to make some decisions. We're here to help you with those. And with that, we will give you a free large pizza from Giorgio's. And if you haven't had it, you're in for a treat.
That's right.
All right.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
No, I'm good. That was good.
All right. As always, for more information, you could always go to RERL-1637.com. Thanks again for checking in today, and thank you again for those that are following us on Facebook. We appreciate it. Have a great afternoon.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at RERadiolive.com.